All right, Left Reckoners. I'm Matt Leck. With me, as always, David Griscom. Hello, David.
Hey, man. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays. Yes, it is. This is our Thanksgiving episode, and we are thankful to be joined by Brandon Sutton, a.k.a. Chad Vigorous, at Pretty Bad Lefty on Twitter. Brandon, hello.
Hello. Great to be here. Happy to be thankful. Thankful to be happy.
Yes, we are. I'm very thankful today for you chaps, and I'm also thankful that Blake Masters particularly lost the Senate seat. Like, honestly, the balance of power is secondary to like seeing this guy lose. JD Vance would have been also fun, just on a personal level, to see these guys fail, but. We're going to take a look back at, and another thing I'm thankful for is Tucker Carlson, because Tucker Carlson put these documentaries together, and it included a clip of that we will be watching of Blake Masters crying in a van that people have enjoyed on Twitter today that I posted. So we're going to start at the beginning of this and just sort of get the vibes of Blake Masters. For folks who don't know, Blake Masters lost to an astronaut, Mark Kelly, in Arizona. And he lost big time. It wasn't even particularly close. He is calling it some sort of voter fraud. And we'll get into like how he's a fence sitter when it comes to this voter fraud narrative, enough to freak people out and, lump him in with Jan 6ers, which he should be, but not enough to really get the, a Republican base to accept him, or Trump himself. Go ahead, Brandon.
Yeah, I was reading when I was looking into Blake Masters for this episode that Trump was kind of like, you're not going hard enough on the stop the steal stuff, Blake. Like, what's going on, And if there's one thing Trump hates, and I know it's from watching The Apprentice, it's disloyalty. Yeah. Like, Trump hates disloyalty more than any sort of incompetence. At least, disloyalty to him.
Exactly. So here's the start of this documentary. This is, again, I've recorded these. I got a free trial for Fox Nation, and did some recording. So this is how we.
Can't read it opening.
Slow that volume a bit.
I remember this now. I remember some of this.
To the stage,
yeah.
Candidate for Senate in Arizona, Blake Masters.
Thank you.
Like an A24 trailer.
For making me your Republican nominee for the United States.
Yeah, this reminds me. I did just say I watched Smile on Friday night. It's a good horror movie. I don't know if you guys.
I've been trying to start that, but it's very similar to a lot of horror movies that have come out recently, like Truth or Dare, or Choose or Die, or Blank or Blanks.
Interesting. I haven't seen any of those, but I will say Smile. Smile's got some good jump scares.
Blake Masters could be a character in one of those, though. He does have that kind of sinister look about him.
Exactly.
He's like the main guy from the first Purge who's trying to break into the house, who's like the yuppie guy.
And his name is Blake Masters. I mean, that's true.
Blake Gates Masters is like his full name. Is what I like. I don't even know if you can be named Gates in the middle name.
Yeah, that's weird. Oops, here it is.
For making me your Republican nominee for the United States Senate. Most Americans, no, not most Americans, see this? All Americans, we are sick. We are sick of Joe Biden and the Democrats destroying our country.
Oops. And I pause. There we go.
And soon, we're going to send a fighter to D.C. That's me. I'm the fighter. I'm the fighter.
That was not a good crossing yourself. Like, he did not cross himself successfully. Like,
I was about to ask,
he's not religious.
Is he a real Catholic or is he a convert?
Well, that's a good question.
I think he's just evangelical. I mean, I guess, it's America. So, like, Christianity and a lot of religions just get, like, mixed all together into a big pot of superstition. So, like, crossing yourself probably seems super religious, but I'm like, is he like a devout Catholic? Mm-hmm. Because that's not popular in America.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't see what I don't see his religion come up. I have to do some more research on that. But what's funny to me about this is how he lost. Like, this was fun, or like it was easy to make fun of, but also like, shit, if he wins, this is gonna suck. But now that he lost, this stuff is very funny to me.
And there's one person in Arizona who's done more than anyone to drag this country in the wrong direction. And that's Senator Mark Kelly.
There's Mark Kelly.
That's Senator Mark Kelly.
From his giant backyard pool. I mean,
very weird. And why, like, what a weird shout out there to his, his pay buddy, Peter Thiel. Just like showing like just one quick shot of a stack of Peter Thiel books in his opening montage of this video.
Yeah, I should just say I've read 0 to 1. I read it when I was in college because it made a bunch of like Washington Post type lists of the best books to read, and Masters will characterize it later his own way, but I would characterize it as basically saying find a way to invest in something that is skirting around regulations that can achieve sort of monopoly status, like Uber or a lot of these gig companies.
Crypto.
Crypto, exactly. And I'll just wait. Right, exactly. Elizabeth Holmes really lived up to the 0 to 1.
Arizona was a big place.
Yeah, that's true.
Mark Kelly, he campaigns as a...
Oh, but also, when they say we wrote this book together, it was Peter Thiel's lectures at Stanford that his teaching assistant, Blake Masters, compiled for a book. So it wasn't like they wrote it.
But he voted as a radical.
And, the president, has he done a good job, do you think?
Hey, everything about Mark Kelly, we all know this, everything about this guy is managed by consultants and handlers. Drop an F-bomb, yay or nay? At least you weren't here, you're like here. Okay, so that's not, because if you go here, then I'm like, gotta do it. Tell me I can't do something, I'm like, we're doing that. As we head into this general election, the media, they're gonna want...
Was that skipping for you guys just now?
I think it was pretty all right.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Might have just been for me.
I will say, I think that, asking people what will be popular gets a bad rap because consultancy for Democrats and a lot of politicians is just we hire some McKinsey guy, especially when it comes to private business, we hire some McKinsey dude to tell us to fire everybody. But there's nothing wrong with polling people to see what they'll respond to. Maybe become a social scientist. I find that to be a silly thing. It's the people who are like Elon Musk who are no, I'm just going to make decisions off the cuff and people better just vibe with it. I'm like, that's not a real way to run a business or a campaign. It's just, it's a popularity contest.
It's not a way to win an election, I think, clearly.
Yes, we
are. Markel's an astronaut, right? He's just,
Well, that's the thing that's so funny is they keep on in the campaign, especially on Twitter and stuff, and this maybe not be campaign sanctioned stuff, but they kept on alluding to the fact that he's an astronaut, which I thought was just such a stupid move because that's something that is a job that most people think is a very cool fucking thing to do. The guy's been to space, right? And to try to keep on saying that as if it's a negative about him was the weirdest kind of shot in the foot that Masters kept on doing.
As someone who engaged with the flat Earth community, I'll tell you that astronauts are not broadly popular there. In fact, people who don't believe in space hate astronauts because they think astronauts are Freemason deep state operatives.
Yeah. They sort of are.
Yeah, I mean, in the sense that they're part of the military.
Yeah, I mean that. And then you have, I mean, we don't need to go further into that, but the memes of drawing Mark Kelly versus Blake Masters in a suit, bro, he's an astronaut. You've never even really had a job that wasn't Peter Thiel.
Where have you been, Blake? To space? If not, it just is what it is. People find that impressive.
The media, they're going to want to tell you that we live in a closely divided state. And most Arizonans, turns out, they want common sense policy. That's what we're going to do in November. We're going to beat Mark Kelly. We're going to turn this country around. Let's go. Because remember, we are the vast majority. Thank you, and here's to victory in November. God bless you.
Super sinister. He doesn't have the kind of face that you can light that way because you can see, when he smiles, the shadows that it creates are very sinister looking. I would, again, that's why you poll test this. You get a focus group together to watch this, and they'll tell you this trailer reads as horror movie.
I don't want to put you on the spot, Matt, but How did Masters sort of get into the position to be the Republican candidate there? I mean, was it just that he got pumped with a lot of money early from Peter Thiel and folks like that?
That's a good question. I remember the primary being nuts.
Yeah, there's a lot of weirdos in it.
Yeah, and I think that's a good question, though. I wouldn't want to say what sort of lane he ran into, but I mean, money was definitely a big part of it. Yeah, and Trump backed him in the primary too.
Okay, there you go.
So,
and then he betrayed him.
And then he didn't go hard for me as hard as we need to, and you know what happens when you do that. But back onto this polling thing. Here's the next clip, which is sort of relevant to that.
One thing that all politicians have in common: they're really risk averse.
How about like Theodore Kaczynski?
You know, you're just.
So he said, "How about like Theodore Kaczynski?" That was in response to like. You're right, and that was in response to a question like, "Who's an out there under respect?" Or I don't want to characterize it too much, but like an out there, not talked about enough thinker.
Heterodox thinkers like Ted Kaczynski and Jeffrey Dahmer and Reverend Richard Wayne, Gary Wayne are all being canceled by our woke media, who just think that like bombing public buildings and kidnapping women to live in a bomb shelter are, they're bad. I think that we got to bring back traditional American values, like those embodied by the Unabomber. But I think I think his thing about the Unabomber though was about like the Unabomber specifically like anti-tech stance, and the way and that's probably just like fitting into like, I know I joked about cancel culture, but it's probably about like how social media companies have run amok for banning Trump and people like him from saying like fake pandemic stuff, and that's like why Ted Kaczynski was right, and I don't think that was what even the Unabomber was talking about.
I also don't know. Sorry, I also don't know like how you run on the anti-tech thing. People know who Peter Thiel is and what Thiel Capital is, which you were the chief operating officer of. There's only money in there because of PayPal. That's tech. It's been such a weird premise to these guys. I can't believe that. I mean, it flew in Ohio, I guess.
One misstatement away from going viral for the wrong reasons.
Probably not great to be talking about Unabomber while campaigning.
And sometimes you don't know what's going to go viral and what's not.
That was going to be good. Oh my God. Dang.
But we've released a few videos that really have gone viral.
This is designed to kill people.
People are like, what? Whoa, he said that?
Psychopaths are running the country right now.
I had consultants that told me, Blake, we never want you to say anything unplanned. And I literally just laughed at him. It's like, that's not going to work.
AK-47.
So
we are funny at war with Russia, and you're using a Kalashnikov. Wow, that's why he lost.
He lost way worse than Kerry Lake, and somebody who I can't remember, one of the lower down ballot races was actually like a full on Jan Sixer and got like, Blake, look inward, man. Like maybe some of this, like, oh, we don't care what the polls say. Who cares if they say not to bring up the Unabomber? Yeah, there's maybe a reason you should have listened to the polls just a little bit.
Yeah, I think so.
People like it's so hard. Forget the polls. Like people like it's so hard to like not know what people are going to react negatively to. But I think the Unabomber, falls squarely into like a category most people aren't willing to engage with out of like a place of open-mindedness. You're right. People are closed-minded about Ted Kaczynski. If you want to have that kind of conversation, maybe that's left to like a graduate level sociology class or something. Not necessarily your campaign video, but I think this is just like a asshole ego thing where it's like the idea of having an expert or experts advise you on how to do anything, whether it be like run your campaign or renovations on your home, is like inherently emasculating. But it's just information, guy. Who cares?
Yeah. Now there is an interaction Blake has with a guy that I've met some of this guy before. Let me just play this clip. This is part of the actual, I think, Republican base in Arizona.
You too.
Always remember one thing.
Yeah, what's
Take us all the way to the bank. Always remember, the West wasn't won with a registered gun.
I will use that.
So yeah.
Wait, would you help us out with that? I wasn't too clear for me.
He said the West wasn't won with a registered gun. And I'll just say like I've met those guys mainly hunting with my dad. They're not all, but a lot of those guys are landowners where you have to say, hey, you mind if we saw some antelope in your field? Can we post up there? And I just think like Blake didn't turn up. There's not enough of those guys. First of all, and I just thought that was a funny little thing to see Blake actually have to interact with somebody who he would never have interacted with prior to this campaign.
And like the thing this might not work out in the polling, but the thing that's funny about all those kind of mythologies is like literally the first thing that most of these Western states did. Like I'm more of an expert on Texas than other places, but like literally the first thing they did was restrict guns in towns. Because they didn't want people wandering around with a 6-shooter because they were causing trouble. So like the first, like if you're like romanticizing like the early Texas Republic or something like that, like they were come take your guns people to a certain extent, right? At least in the cities.
Even OK Corral.
Yeah, no, even in like the OK Corral was famous because of like the fact that happened there. But like even in Western movies, like the first thing that you do when you get to town is that you have to turn your guns over to like the mayor. That's like that's literally in Back to the Future 3 too. It's like it's this mythology of a dangerous America where America has been dangerous, but not necessarily for those kinds of people. The nostalgia of like a dangerous America where the only person who's capable of protecting your wife and kids is you with a gun, I guess from Native Americans who are still roaming the plains looking to scalp like tender young white babies. But like that's it's all just cosplay, like, and that like they have to pretend like they're representing guys like that, like they like that's the kind of like archetype of guy that Republicans who are all like Harvard and Stanford educated lawyers, just like the Democrats, pretend like they're representing, like, oh, this sort of real hometown, like tobacco spitting hillbilly America, hillbilly LG America, but they hate those people. Trump is the best example of that. He finds those people like inherently repulsive, and he can't disguise it. Where like usually people can like just put on a face and like yeah.
So Blake, there's an extended bit where Blake talks to victims of border crime and stuff like that, narrated by Tucker Carlson, basically saying Mark Kelly is personally opening the border.
All right.
I would say the ultimate border crime was committed by Saudi Arabia during 9/11, but I think a lot of people aren't ready for that conversation.
I don't think so.
I'm back now. Sorry about that. Mark Kelly personally doing the border, opening the border. And that led to Blake being emotional. And I just want to share this with everyone because it's Blake Masters crying. So here it is.
Affect, I guess, your attitude on really trying to win this race?
There's some David Lynch.
Makes me want to win.
Oh, come on, man. Like, that doesn't work. Go for it.
Even when he's crying, he just still looks kind of like the villain in a World War II submarine movie. Like, I don't like. It's just something about like his like characteristics and features that make him look like he's in many ways he's like the negative version of Beto O'Rourke. Like, he's just like lack of charisma, but like all the same opposite opinions.
Wow. Well, yeah. I mean, I just like on that note, it's like that's why I mean it seems like he was just sort of winging this campaign and really didn't understand his base at all. Cause like, you can make like the border a big thing and make it into a winning issue. Like Abbott does that all the time. And Abbott does it in like the militarized way. Like, his like last ad was like, equivalent to like tanks rolling over the border. Like we're about to, send the military down there to deal with this crisis. I've never seen Abbott get weepy. Before anything like that. Like Abbott's not the most charismatic fellow, but Abbott wins with Republican voters. And it's just like, there's a model there that works. And like this kind of like, doing kind of Beto O'Rourke, sweet, sensitive guy thing, but for violently enforcing the U.S. United States borders. Like those two things do not really merge very well.
the idea of immigrant crime being committed in American cities just brings a tear to his eye. He's a sensitive guy. You know, this is how like all of like the crime in the city Republicans actually are. Like they just like, you know, frightful, quite scared. It's like, you know, people have to live their lives. Like, you know, when people live, I know you're in Texas, and so, like, this has always been my experience. People who are in Texas, like, the closer you are to the border, the less you feel like it's a problem. Like, you know, unless you're like a psycho. Like, the more you like live like near those people, and you see that it's just like a stretch of land. You know, obviously from the American side, it's, you know, just a stretch of land. From the Mexican side, it's like a demilitarized. You know, it's a militarized like border. But you know, it's not a concern so much as it is just like an ever-present reminder that these borders are fake.
You know, I mean, like in fairness, I think that like there is a lot of like genuine concern in like South Texas, just because like from what like the right wing, you know, for sure, but also from other people, because it's like you have a lot of responsibility to deal with the problem. You know what I mean? So it's like different from like but at the same time, I totally agree with you in the sense that like in East Texas, you know, we're just getting as further away from the border as you can. Like that's where immigration people are like really, really worked up about it, versus like in South Texas, where it's like, yeah, no, this is like, I have family on the other side, or I know these communities on the other side. Like the demonization stuff that the right tries to do doesn't really play well there. Which I think is a little different from saying it's not like an issue, because like, I think that's one thing that Beto was actually really bad on, was it's just like have the humane position, but sort of run on that. And instead it was sort of like, you know, we don't want to have like a militarized border, which is fine. But then you have to sort of make it seem like we have a plan to, you know, make sure that this thing doesn't become like a burden on communities and things like that. But
I mean, I think it's more of an abstraction. Like, you know, same with crime in the city. Like, you know, there's obviously crime in New York, and obviously any border is going to have like crossing issues if we have them. But, you know, like there's a difference between like having to engage with the reality, the geographic reality of living on that border every day, versus like this theoretical reality of like
the invasion stuff doesn't play well there.
MS-13. Yeah, like what if MS-13 comes over?
No, the invasion stuff doesn't play well. Like there's like very practical. It's like I'm finding people like who are dehydrated like on my property, and like, you know, we need to do something so that there's not like dying people coming over, you know, and you know, we're having to, you know, sort of take care of folks when like the state is like brutalizing people on the Rio Grande, right? That's what I mean. It's just, it's different from like, you know, suburban Dallas, where they're just like, they're coming in here and they're invading our society, which is complete bullshit. And it's just like, also like, again, going back to the crime thing, it's just like, I remember they brutalized AOC for tearing up at the border. Remember that?
Oh, right. Yeah.
You know, and it's just like to think that you could do that, but right wing, it's just, I don't know. You gotta have like good instincts in politics, like putting like ideology aside, like you have to have good instincts of what's going to play well, and breaking down with some David Lynch music playing in the back does not really work well, I don't think. Whereas we know it didn't work well.
So let's not a coherent picture. I think I was gonna say it's just not a coherent picture of you know, right wing masculinity is very like, you know, inconsistent in what it demonizes versus what it actually like holds up to be a paragon of masculinity. You know, you have people like Blake Masters crying because not enough people are being shot by the, you know, border patrol at the border. You have like Jordan Peterson crying because he's not allowed to do hate crimes. It's like, you know, and then they'll make fun of people for crying for being the victim of those things. They're like, oh, you know, you were a hate crime victim, like, and you're sad about that. Like, oh, it's like, you try not getting to do a hate crime and see how sad you'll be. And it's like,
yeah, I can't remember what that girl, the protester, when she's like screaming up into the sky, but they love to use that meme of like being really upset. And it's like, you act that way when like a book that's sort of accepting of trans people is allowed to be checked out by a high school student.
They act that way about like The House on Mango Street, a book about like Latino immigrants living in like a largely Latino section of a city. Like they have a lot of, you know, I'd say like a lot of like triggers for people who are constantly talking about how other people are sensitive and all their feelings shouldn't be prioritized.
I want to move now to we've got I guess that's as much populism as was in this documentary, is that guy saying the West wasn't won with an unregistered gun, and also people are killed by immigrants.
You know, that's
yeah.
So no, I mean, but I don't know, we got more close, but that's the thing that is really interesting about like both Vance and Masters, right? Is that like the way it gets portrayed in the media is that like, oh, this new form of like right-wing populism. But there's not too much populism. Like they like to pivot and be like, I'm for the people. But like literally other than just like rhetorical flourishes from time to time, there's not too much like kind of grassroots populism there, which I mean, isn't surprising when you remember that this is all top down money interest trying to make it appear like the people are demanding little freaks like Masters to represent them. But, it is interesting to see how much play they got in the media for this, like right-wing populism is rising in Arizona and in Ohio. And, it's very, very shallow.
Well, go ahead.
I would say even like the astroturfing by the Koch brothers of the Tea Party in the early, 2008, 2010 cycle, at least had more gestures to like a real sort of populism. Like, okay, look at these banks being bailed out. Like some of the same stuff that QAnon has kind of like, I guess there's a direct line from like the Tea Party to QAnon followers now, but things that the QAnon people have kind of abandoned in favor of more like Illuminati style explanations for why that happens. Like, the Tea Party, at least, if you were to take them at their word, were saying that they were mad that big banks were being bailed out and not like Main Street. Nowadays, they don't even gesture towards things like that. Like, it's just like, the average American wants Peter Thiel to only pay $0 in tax. And that's just like, that doesn't even sound like populism. Like they've long since abandoned even like the illusion of these narratives, because they know for most part, if you just only like have a gun in the ad, like, show that you're tough on minorities and the disabled, that people are going to like project the rest of the stuff onto you.
Yeah, and I mean, so that's where we turn to why Blake Masters is really taking up our attention is Peter Thiel and money.
Thank you for being willing to help. Please be as generous as possible.
Sorry, thank you for being willing to help. Not great at this.
Thank you for being willing to help. Please be as generous as possible. If you're here, hopefully you're doing really well. You won't notice the $1,000, $2,000, maybe $5,000 that you donate to my campaign. You will notice if we have a Democratic majority in the Senate for the next couple of years. Okay, so please be as generous as possible. Thank you for the support so far, and thank you, Peter, for hosting us. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you, Peter Thiel, for hosting us. I mean, first of all, he thinks more of the Democratic Party than I do, because I don't think a lot of those people are going to feel much of a difference at all. But $3,000, $5,000, you won't feel it. I mean, it'd be nice to go to parties like that. I can't imagine. I
mean, if Peter Thiel's friends are only going to kick in $2,000, they really don't have faith in you, because, like, let's be honest, they can definitely they won't feel it. Why not 10,000? Well, I mean, shit, you should donate at least till you feel a little bit, if you care about.
And thank you, Peter, for hosting us. Thank you all for being here.
Peter's one of my best friends. He's like one of the only pro-Trump America First billionaires that we have. So, we wrote this book, 0 to 1. It was all about finding a way for you to be unique.
We have a really lean structure, which definitely is different from other campaigns, so very few full-time staff.
This is the greatest time, it's the funnest time to get involved, so you just got drafted.
And I just want to say that seeing you in person, I would agree with you. I think more people need to see you. You're impressive.
How did that work out? Let's see.
Jenny.
Got a really lean staff.
In person, I would agree with you. I think more people need to see you. You're impressive.
We've been spending a lot.
Oh yeah, that woman wants to fuck Blake Masters at the end there.
You know what's awesome? I was just looking at his fundraising a little bit. Trump did something that a lot of the right wingers are doing now, doing the 99 to 1 split, trying to raise money for Blake Masters, but 99% of every dollar goes to Trump and 1% goes to Blake Masters.
Hey, look, it's a good deal.
You won't even feel it. You won't even feel it.
You won't even notice.
Here's a little bit more of Blake Masters on fundraising.
Carve out like half the day for fundraising. You asked me, my ideal day would be no fundraising at all, but then the campaign is, in dire straits because we don't have money. So
everybody's asking me about Mitch McConnell. Blake, this race is close. You've done your job. You've kept it close. Why isn't Mitch McConnell coming in to invest?
I don't think there are good reasons. I think there are shockingly no good reasons.
But in fact, there was a reason. Permanent.
Oh, I forgot about it. I forgot about Tucker Carlson's Montana theme these days.
Yeah, I know. I should have maybe included a little bit more of that, because what's funny about that is so Blake here asks they're talking about like, why is McConnell not putting in money, and then Tucker has to like, he says contradictory things here. It's like, because permanent Washington hates challengers or whatever. But then he has to admit that Peter Thiel, well, see what he says about Peter Thiel right after that.
Close, you've done your job, you've kept it close. Why isn't Mitch McConnell coming in to invest?
I don't think there are good reasons. I think there are shockingly no good reasons.
But in fact, there was a reason. Permanent Washington despises Blake Masters and his politics. But that wasn't his only problem. Peter Thiel stopped financing his campaign after the primary. Masters' success hinged on a debate performance with the incumbent Democrat Mark Kelly.
So Peter Thiel also was pulling his money out of the race, because I think probably in retrospect we can guess that it wasn't as close as Blake thought it was.
You can't send good money after bad money, and that's just that's rule number one in 0 to 100 or whatever the name of his like business book is. Like rule number one is don't send good money behind bad money. Don't be afraid to drop an investment immediately if it turns to not pan out.
Yeah, that's 0 to 1 actually. Zero being to 1 monopoly. It's just about being unique as an individual. And as
is it one of the Are they one of those like hedge fund, like, every CEO of like a hedge fund or investment bank writes one of those like books that like is just like named something like that, like 0 to 1 or 10 rules for an agile workplace. And it's just like full of like bullshit chapters that might as well just be like lorem ipsum in terms of like the actual information in it. Like it's like a chapter, it's like a list of like rules, like a top 10 list of rules where it's just like rule number 1, find a white space in the market and exploit it. Rule number 2, get a good lawyer.
Yeah, and I mean with Thiel, I think it really served to launder his reputation, because before he made all this money, he was just a Stanford bro who was a culture warrior. He had like a book about the culture war, and then he makes a whole bunch of this PayPal money through, I think, associations like Stanford, Nevada, like Stanford, and he needs to put himself forward as like this business genius, and that's where you get 0 to 1 come from. Now we'll move to the debate with Mark Kelly, and it's funny to think of how they won and where they're actually sensitive to where they might have lost.
You have to appreciate how well that went.
And also, babe.
Seriously.
You were in the middle. You got
the optics in the middle was great.
He is tall.
The imagery with these 2 short guys next to you.
Yeah, they look tiny.
It's not a contest of height. They didn't look tiny enough, Blake.
People love Lurch. Eddie Munster, Fred Gwynn. People love Fred Gwynn.
Yeah, as somebody who was called Lurch growing up, that hits. Okay, yeah.
It's more of the look in his face than it is like the height.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. And also, you don't want, imagine a tall motherfucker up there in space. All right, Mark Kelly's got an excuse for being short.
Yeah. Bone density, yeah.
Have your size 14s clobbing around in the capsule.
I guess this is a weird question, but like, why did Tucker Carlson make a documentary on Blake Masters of all of the like psychos running for like Congress in this country? Like, ultimately he just seems boring. Like Blake Masters just seems boring, low charisma. Maybe he knows Peter Thiel, and I guess that's like the main reason, because he figures Peter Thiel kicking money for like the doc. But I mean, there are definitely more interesting Republican candidates.
Herschel Walker would have been great. I would love a Fox original.
Yeah,
it's honestly, now that I say it a lot, it's probably because he's boring. Because like some of the like the other candidates, if you were to follow them around and get documentary footage of them, I don't think you'd be able to produce a real documentary that people would feel good about. At least not Republicans. So you got to find like this guy Blake Masters lives in like a gated probably community in Arizona, a pool. Swim up bar or whatever. And so he's just like really normal, and Republicans have been struggling with like normal candidates for a while.
Yeah. All right, now here is where we see Blake Masters cope in real time with the really good put down Mark Kelly had in the debate. And I think there's an important political skill is to make points that can be interpreted by everybody, not just people who are following politics closely. And I think Mark Kelly won this debate with basically this point here.
will actually secure a border. I actually think one thing that he did that was effective was probably like, look, we all know a guy like this.
Yeah, I know.
I think we all know guys like this. You know, guys that think they know better than everyone about everything. No, you think you know better than women and doctors about abortion. You even think you know better than seniors about Social Security. You think you know better.
So irritating though, because you're so not that guy.
Yeah, everybody does know that guy. It's like, no, I don't know better than a woman
Yeah,
or
that
a
was
doctor,
his best moment.
but I do know that it's like you can't kill an 8-month-old baby.
So you do know better than a woman or a doctor. But see, that's why you get a focus group, because I bet that line was definitely planned out. That wasn't an off line. They're like, yeah, pull this out on him, and if he gets a little bit cocky on you, because like everyone does know a guy like this.
Well, that's what's so funny is like his cope is, I don't believe more than them, but you can't be doing this. It's like that shit ain't happening, man. Like, like all the shit that you're like trying to say is all like that's all taken care of by doctors. Like, right? There's no like willy nilly. Oh, let's just do it. I thought. Sorry, madam. I thought we were delivering the baby today, but you want to kill it just because? Like that shit doesn't happen.
I mean, we've all seen, a doctor mess up a chart, like an OBGYN mess up a chart, and it's like instead of birthing the 9-month-old baby, they just kill it in the womb. That happens all the time in America. Not in like free countries like Bulgaria or Poland.
Yeah, and what's so good too is like those canned like facial expression, like the shock, like that woman be like, "Oh, how dare he say this?" Yeah, knowing now that like all the voters in Arizona ended up agreeing with Kelly, it was just like, yeah, we don't like this motherfucker. He does think that he knows better than the rest of us,
and we'd like him less than the other Republicans, which I keep needing to stress in Blake Masters. Like Carrie Lake, who I don't particularly think of as likable, was dominating this guy to a point where it makes it awkward when you're trying to like say the election was stolen, because it's like, motherfucker, they specifically stole it from you. Like they were really stealing it from you.
Republicans are generally unlikable though. I think that from like it's hard to deny, and this is something that I guess when Benny Johnson was like freaking out on like the what's his face's show with the small face and the back pain. Charlie Kirk. Yeah, Charlie Kirk's like, young Republican power hour on a Free American Radio Video Press or whatever like they work for now. This idea that like young people are going to be enthralled by like, a based Blake Masters is, offensive to young people, because like, no one's falling for any of this stuff. Like, I think a lot of Republicans live in this like bubble of not just like Republican media, but the, media landscape that pretends like Republicans are normal. Like they're a normal party full of normal people within the political, like within the context of like the global political setting, and that they're not just a party of like weirdos who have like fringe right opinions. And I think a lot of them are surprised by how unpopular they actually are. And if you happen to be one of them, like Blake Masters, who's also not crazy enough, you're definitely not going to win. No one's going to vote for a boring Republican who's like fence sitting. We're way past that point. You got to be at least, Marjorie Taylor Greene levels, or unless you're an entrenched Republican like Mitch McConnell, then you get to be like vaguely just evil. It feels like weird.
Not crazy. I mean, you couldn't have set up the next clip better, Brandon, the not crazy enough thing, because here's where we get to the voting fraud answers, and here's Blake discussing that in the van on the way home. Too much van shots. A lot of this documentary is riding in the van with Blake.
It's true. The
Hunter Biden movie.
Yeah.
Working class love vans.
What was that, Brandon?
The working class loves vans.
They love being chauffeured in vans.
Said I saw no evidence of fraud. Something really won't like that.
I suspect President Trump would be in the White House today if big tech and big media and the FBI didn't work together to put the thumb on the scale to get Joe Biden in there.
But not vote counting, not election results.
Yeah, I haven't seen evidence of that, but I'm telling you what I think the problem is. I think the problem is big tech. It's like
big tech?
by far the biggest problem. Even if there's ballot harvesting, there's problems and shit.
But not the billionaire
patriot. The biggest problem of the 2020 election was big tech and big media lying to people.
But ask yourself, do you deserve a secure border?
So that's really interesting, because first of all, all he needed to do was say ballot harvesting. There are some questions about ballot harvesting, and he would have at least done something. He didn't. He totally cucked it on stage there.
Dinesh D'Souza put out a whole movie called 2000 Mules that you could have just referenced and been like, there's a lot of people who are saying things again.
Exactly.
The poll test, so you can know how that's not a good way to thread the needle. You guys say something like, a lot of people have identified irregularities within the voting system that I think bear looking into, and that's it. And then don't just keep going about oh no, I just think that sometimes cancel culture maybe people want to hear that they were that immigrants were stuffing the ballot boxes, that a van full of Mexicans pulled up outside of the local library where there's a ballot and they just filled the box with Joe Biden votes. That's what they want to hear. If you're not going to give them that, you might as well not say anything. You must look up the stage. But I think a lot of Republicans like him too, they know they have to have a career after whatever they're doing this is. They know that the stuff that plays with Republican politics and politicians doesn't necessarily play when you're trying to get a job after in a big tech company. What if Blake Masters wants to work for Cisco Systems later? No one in our world thinks about these things from a hiring standpoint like that, but they'll just be no, we saw you doing this you said the election was stolen, we have deals with the voting companies, we can't have you working here, it's just not going to work out, especially since Dominion started suing people for it. It's he's just worried about his actual money. He's what if Dominion sues me for saying that their voting machines are bad? And he has real things to worry about. Not crazy enough.
Yeah, and now it's just funny because he's calling for investigations and sort of lumping in with Kerry Lake, but it's a little bit too late. And again, it's to say this ballot harvesting, he says at the end, just real quick here,
But ask yourself, do you deserve a secure border? Do you deserve to feel safe when you walk outside at night?
Oh, right. So yeah, yours pivots to there. He lost his election. He was going to lose it anyway. It doesn't matter if there was same day voting or a lot of mail-in, but the Republicans specifically discouraged folks from mail-in voting. And now Blake Masters is saying, no, we got to beat them at the mail-in voting game because the same day voting just sucks. And that's very funny. A bit of irony there. And one last clip. This is the coup de grace. This is one I think a lot of people heard of this documentary from. It's Trump talking with our boy Blake Masters himself about his performance in the debate.
Mr. President, how are you, sir? Doing great.
Such a cock.
I do love the music.
It's just downturn as Trump is low energy Blake.
Because I got a lot of complaints about that. I don't know what you did with the debate, but I heard you did great on the debate, but a bad election answer. You got a lot of.
Yeah, bad. Sorry, I think I'm freezing. Maybe not you guys. I'll just let it play.
You gotta stay with those people.
Absolutely, we stay with those people. And it was a pleasure to put Mark Kelly on the ropes.
Yeah, no, he's terrible, and you were excellent.
Well, thank you.
Is that Trump? It sounds like an impersonator. It sounds like a
definitely. It's Trump, Times Square impersonator who takes pictures with people. You should call Trump daddy and get it over with. At this point, if you're just this cuck to be smiling when Trump calls you, it's thank you, Daddy Trump, for calling me to congratulate me after losing the baseball game.
Yeah. Yeah.
How you doing?
It's great. We've got the momentum. I think the race is tied right now. And the debate showed all the rhinos in DC. They wanted to say, "Oh, Blake's unelectable," and then I just stomped Kelly. So I think now even the
he was terrible.
It's so embarrassing what he's trying to do. Trump watched or heard shit about it, and Kelly and Masters is just trying to give him his version of what the headline should be.
Mm-hmm. The thing about Trump, again, this shows how Blake Masters isn't good at reading people. Trump just wants to hear about Trump. Trump wants to hear about what this means for him. And Blake is talking about himself. Blake needs to be talking about how when he gets in the Senate, he's going to make sure that Trump wins in 2024, that he wants to be Trump's number one guy. Like, Trump didn't call him to talk about Blake Masters. That's ridiculous.
Right.
This is why like Trump didn't support him. It's because he doesn't know what Trump wants. Trump wants him to call you like, Trump is so glad to hear you. You know, I just want to say it's an honor, and also like they robbed you, and I love The Apprentice. And then, you know, let's talk about how we can get me in the Senate and what I can do for you in the Senate to get you back. Like this whole thing where he's like, oh yeah, you know, Mark Kelly, you know, I did a good job, I think, and Blake Masters is going to rise again. And like, Trump didn't even watch it. If he cared enough about you, he would have watched it. He didn't.
That's such a good point. Like the talking about rhinos, bro. Trump doesn't call them never Trumpers. They're never Trumpers now. You don't call them rhinos. Rhinos. What am I watching? Animal Planet? I'm being bored.
When he
was terrible.
Go ahead.
I was just saying,
You were great. He was terrible. Is Peter Thiel helping much, or what happened?
He is a little bit more behind the scenes. I don't know what happened there, but money's flowing in now.
It's not.
Oh, is he sending some money now? He's giving you my help.
I think so, and I think it's going to flow in now.
Tell Peter to help you. Help.
Well, I'll tell him you said that.
A lot of cuts here. A lot of interesting cuts. I was just noticed as an editor, like you cut things out that you don't want the public to see. But I think it's flown. Not really the strong answer I want to be hearing.
The 1 yard line.
Yeah.
If you want to get across the line, you got to go stronger in that one thing, because that was the one thing you had a lot of complaints about. Look at Carrie. Carrie's winning with very little money. And if they say, how is your family? She says the election was rigged and stolen. You'll lose if you go soft. You're going to lose that base.
I'm not going soft.
I've never come into a rally where the person...
That's so awesome. Carrie Lake. Yeah.
Ask her how her family is. She says Trump got the election stolen. I mean,
is that Donald Trump's name in the phone, or is that just like a number? Because I hope they would blur that out. Like you wouldn't be able to.
Oh
yeah.
It makes me think that this is. It makes me think this isn't live. Like it would be kind of like difficult to like get this call like recorded live. It might just be they recorded when Donald Trump called, and they're like doing this filming later and having him like reenact his part of the conversation, and that's why it's all cutty like this, because he's having to re-deliver the lines over and over again. Like
that's funny.
Because what else would be happening that would require them to cut when it just seems to be a continuous call?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right. Or just maybe I don't know. Trump.
I just did like this. Though. Like this, the lighting in this movie is wild. That's why, like, that's why you need to like actually ask people how to do things, because this movie has like the craziest lighting for like what is supposed to be a positive documentary.
Sorry, woke lighting, studio lighting experts.
Get a ring light in there. Like,
yeah, no shit.
Family, she says the election was rigged and stolen. You'll lose if you go soft. You're going to lose that base.
I'm not going soft.
I've never come into a rally where the person lost. Not once. I mean, it's been pretty amazing.
No, I'm just sure we're going to beat this guy.
You take care of yourself, and you're gonna be a rocket ship tomorrow. You watch. Have a good time, Blake. I'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you, Mr. President. Bye-bye.
So long, man. Bye.
I didn't think I went soft on the election.
Why would they put that in the movie? That's so awesome.
I know, right? It's weird because like before the election, it seemed like it was passive aggressive, trying to make sure everybody gets like on side. Thiel, McConnell, Trump. Mm-hmm. Let's help this guy. But now it just looks kind of damning.
It's just he doesn't seem to get that he's supposed to lie to some people. Like it seems as though like I know this is like an entitled person thing. Like he thinks he can just go out there and like tell people what he thinks, and that they're just going to have to deal with it. And that includes like Trump, I guess. And it's just like Trump said, when they asked Carrie Lake how her family is doing, like, I heard your kid broke his ankle, and she says the fucking election was rigged. That's her answer to every question, and that's what Trump wants to hear. And like that's what Peter Thiel also wants to hear. And if you're not going to do it, like, what are you even here for? Like, you just want attention.
Well, folks, we'll have to try to keep our eye on Blake Masters and give him some more attention as he sort of recoils into loserdom.
I'll be
I don't know
interested
if
to
you
see
guys
what's
have any
next.
final thoughts. Yeah, what's next for him? Probably with Peter Thiel, I imagine.
I think that Blake Masters can pay me to tell him what to say in situations like this, and it won't help him win the election, but it'll certainly help him have better interactions with Trump and with Peter Thiel. And I mean, that's all he can really hope for. So like, Blake, $100,000, you won't make these mistakes again. When they ask you how your family's doing, you'll also say the election was rigged. I guarantee you by the time I'm done with you.
Yeah, you won't have the will to say anything else.
How do you want your steak cooked? The election was rigged.
Medium rare. Look into the Dominion voting machines.
Yeah.
When you're at the altar trying to marry your wife and renew your vows, you say, "I do, sir." The election was rigged. I would say, "Your Honor." Like that's what you call it.
All right. Well, guys, I think that's enough Blake Masters for this weekend. Brandon, where can people follow your work?
Work is a strong word to describe what I do, but you can follow me and myself on Twitter at Pretty Bad Lefty. You can follow my podcast, The Discourse, on all major podcasting platforms. And of course, you can find me on The Majority Report on Thursday with Matt Leck and all of the other millennials, Millennial Thursdays, MT. Modern Millennial Thursdays, MMT. I hope that's not taken by anything. I don't. But yes, it's been a blast. I might actually go and watch the rest of this documentary because it seems like right up my alley. It's like very interesting seeming.
Hey, you can get a free trial. You got about 5 to 7 days to watch this one and the one on masculinity. So, again,
I don't think. This is why you need bowl testing. It doesn't seem worth the money. Like, I would maybe put it on YouTube first, see if people want to see it, and then put it behind the paywall. The next one, but
they have to save Blake Masters crying from getting out into the public.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
All right. See you, folks.
Yeah. Appreciate it.